Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight I am so happy to have this guest. I've been waiting for a long time. We have Jimmy, and I forgot to ask how to pronounce his last name when I talked to him during sound check, but I think it's Petonito. Jimmy Petonito, or a.k.a. Mr. Haunted himself, is going to be here tonight. If some people are not familiar with it, he's worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren, Bishop Bob McKenna. You might have known back in I think it was in the 90s, there was a Exorcist special where they did a exorcism. It was like on a major news network. I remember it when I was a kid, and Jimmy was part of that, I believe. We'll talk to him about that tonight and the many cases that he's been on and his investigations into the paranormal. And, of course, what we like to do every Sunday night is the World Wide Web of Weird. We'll be coming up with that in a second. And we will have the call-in lines. I changed things up. I have him only audio only tonight for Jimmy, but I changed things up, so we should have a Skype line and we should have a phone line, so you can call in by phone after the second half of the second commercial break. We'll take phone calls in. All right, guys, be with you in just one sec. Alright guys, welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. I've been stoked to do this show like all day, like totally pumped. After we had so many breaks, me being sick and too many breaks, now we're getting kind of back into the groove of things. I'm really happy to have this guest. He'll be joining us after the first commercial break. And of course, joining me every Sunday night usually is Jamie, my beautiful co-host. Let me make sure I pull up the share screen on that. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well and excited to be here tonight.
Didn't look like Rob made it. I didn't know if he was coming tonight or not, but it should be a good one. Bill, if you're out there, you should join, man. Mr. Haunted himself is going to be on this show. I cannot wait to talk to Jimmy Petonito. And I'm the butcher of names, but I think I got it right. I think I might have. I'll have to ask him. I'm probably totally butchering it. But let's do what we do every Sunday night is the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, we got a lot of weirdness. There's a lot of weirdness I couldn't cover. I mean, lately there's been a lot of bird stories. I didn't include those in the show, but there's been, like, the birds that fell from the sky and birds, like, making it look like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. And then there's been a lot of booms, too. I mean, there's just been some weirdness going around. But I tried to keep it focused on some weird stories tonight and some stuff to get to cover that we've covered before. And we're going to start out with, of course, Tom DeLonge. And some new stuff has come out about the UFO footage that they were so declaring was so legit. All right, so yeah, this story comes from, let's see, the DivineCosmos.com. And let me get the share screen up here. Jeff, our video engineer, is going to run the World Wide Web of Weird. DivineCosmos.com. Tom DeLonge's CIA and other intel advisors used a picture of a Mylar party balloon from 2005 as if it was a genuine UFO and raised over $2.2 million in funding from the event featuring it. And I watched that crap show live stream. There was widespread suspicion of this mainstream media-sanctioned disclosure of the UFO community, and it was just proven correct. Someone within the group obviously knew this was a fake image. We do not feel Tom DeLonge was in on it, and his silence suggests he must be very upset at this point. With the formerly invincible cabal on the ropes like never before, perhaps this disclosure was just too easy. No one's figured fighting and dying to make this happen, and the media towed the line. The members of this group completely ghosted the UFO community at large, hardly getting any access whatsoever to the people on the front lines of the disclosure movement. So they took their money and they ran. That's what I don't know. I mean, I feel like Tom DeLonge's got good intentions. I really do. I feel like he's, somebody was interested, but I think he's getting played. And this one, This UFO, if you go to this website, you can get more pictures of it. It's a number one floating balloon from a birthday party. It wasn't even from like they didn't even have the right event. Like they gave it some other tile over ship. I don't have the details here. I'm not gonna read the whole article. And it turned out it was from another UFO picture from another part of the world at another time. So they kind of like just ripped off this picture from another story. I mean, what the heck? That's just crappy. And then take a bunch of people. $2.2 million they raised. Oh my God! You know, what was it, like a minimum of a $250 donation? It's ridiculous. All right. And my whole point is we don't need to donate a bunch of money to get disclosure. We paid our money in tax money that they skimped and stole to do their black projects. All right, this next one, here's some weirdness. Mysterious wind blows down big trees in Washington State. Let's see. What in the world could possibly blow down more than 100 trees in the middle of the national park when no other major weather event was recorded in the area? This comes from the SeattlePI.com. That's a good question, and one that could be explained either simply if it was a downdraft wind or through a Sherlock Holmes-style breakdown of events, courtesy of local weather guru Cliff Mass. In the wee morning hours of January 27, 2018, some kind of significant wind event managed to blow down 110 trees across a large swath of forest on the northern shore of Lake Quinault on Washington's Olympic Peninsula. Such wind was not recorded at nearby weather stations, nor did radar records from the time show anything more than some high and low pressure systems meeting across meeting, according to Mass. The explanation espoused by the Daily World was the wind came from a microburst, a rare wind event that creates a downward wind in a localized area. But the National Weather Service meteorologist told Mass it would have taken winds up to 70 to 80 miles per hour to snap trees off in this way, and it happened that night, so Mass dismissed that possibility. National Park Service reports from Mass indicated that the wind event likely came from the north or a northerly wind, and records showed a seismic record of the event. In other words, it was such a force of trees falling that it looked like a small earthquake. I don't know, man. Wind? I don't know. Something happened in that forest. Something weird. I said you can get that from SeattlePie.com is where you get that article. And I'll have these people, we're streaming out to Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network right now for people watching on Facebook. And people on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network listening, we stream out as a webcast to our Facebook page, Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. And a few days later, when I can get on it, I try to repost an edit of the World Wide Web of Weird with the links to the articles and just the World Wide Web of Weird and the videos if you listened online. That way you can go back and watch it if you're interested in seeing these pictures. All right, let's move on. This, I fear of snakes. It's one of my big pet peeves, fear of drowning. And the other one is my eyes. I don't like anything near my eyes. So when this story came out, and there's no pictures of this. There's no pictures. It's just an article. Woman apparently tore out her own eyeballs and was found holding them in her hands near South Carolina church. And don't you dare, Jeff. Don't you dare. Jeff had to go find a picture of a woman with her eyes missing, like in some fake gore thing. Thanks, Jeff. See, that's what you're missing, people, at Late Night in the Midlands. Of course, I like to listen to shows, too. I listen to shows that are webcasts all the time. But, yeah, I knew you were going to do that, too. All right. South Carolina woman apparently tore out her own eyes and was found holding them in her hands near a church this week, according to local reports. This comes from KTLA.com. Horrified churchgoers called 911 Tuesday after the grisly discovery. It was across the street, and I could see blood, and I could hear screaming, and I realized something was wrong. Elizabeth Hoyt, who had been working at the South Main Chapel and Mercy Center in Anderson, South Carolina, told the TV station, I immediately called 911, and it was almost felt like 911 dispatcher didn't even believe me. That's how crazy it was. Despite a conflicting report from Associated Press, Lieutenant Boland of Anderson County Sheriff's Office confirmed that both eyes were removed, not just one. WYFF reported that after a witness called 911, the woman who had been kneeling next to some railroad tracks ripped out the second eye. Oh, my God. She didn't injure anybody, but it took several people to subdue her enough to get her on a stretcher, Owen said. Witnesses said she was holding the eyeballs in her hands and not letting anyone touch her. Medical workers rushed the woman to an area hospital by helicopter. Hoyt said she had seen the woman at the church before, but not regularly. The woman is on a respirator, but in stable condition. WYFF reported. The motive behind the incident is unknown. I'd like to know if there's a toxicology report on that.
Synthetics.
Right. Well, they said she was a churchgoer, though. I mean, I don't know. Let's do some synthetic drugs and go to church is not a good idea. You might rip your eyeballs out.
Some legalized marijuana laced with synthetics.
Oh, my God. It's so dangerous. All right. Number 4 on the World Wide Web of Weird here. I want to get moving because we got a great guest tonight, Jimmy Petonito, if I'm hopefully not butchering that. This comes from unexplainedmysteries.com. MH370 search vessel disappears for 3 days. Exactly what happened to the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 after it took off from the Kuala Lumpur International Airport on March 8, 2014 still remains one of the most enduring mysteries in aviation history. Despite undertaking an extensive search covering 46,000 miles, costing $160 million and lasting 1,046 days, investigators from Australia, China, and Malaysia ultimately failed to find the wreckage. Now, U.S.-based exploration firm Ocean Infinity has launched a new search for the plane on a no-cure, no-fee basis, which I have no idea what that means, and sent its seabed constructor vessel out to investigate the region. In a bizarre twist, however, the vessel, which had started its search on January 22nd, went missing after a mere 10 days having turned off its automatic identification system. Reappeared again 3 days later on its way to a scheduling refueling stop near the Ocean Infinity near Northern Malaysian government have been able to explain what happened to it. Some have speculated that the ship may have found the wreckage and has been covering it up. I found the development quite odd and worried, says K.S. Darren, I guess. A relative of one of the people disappeared, a relative of one of the people, sorry, I totally butchered the names of the people that disappeared from the MH370 flight. It's weird, the ship goes missing for 3 days and they're not going to give any explanation. You wonder if they found the wreckage and they're just trying to keep people away from it. But I have a fascination with the sea and missing ships and stuff and missing planes. And this is one of those ones that's still going on. We've still not found this plane after all this time, and I feel like they never will. I really do. But maybe they did. Maybe that's why they turned their beacon off, their locator, or whatever you want to call it. All right, this next one up is some Bigfoot stuff. This is a video. I'll let Jeff play it here, and then I'll talk a little bit about the articles from Sasquatchable.com. For people listening to Late Night in the Midlands, or on top of a mountain, a boulder just fell. That's what
There's
you heard.
something down there. You see that in the clearing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you see a man walking, or you see something walking. I'm giving away what my thoughts are. You see something walking, 2 legs, totally, now they're going to show it slowed down. Now, this video is from 2009. It's been going the rounds lately again, and people are still questioning if it's a real thing. I want to say, and
He has humanistic characteristics, the way he
I
walks.
feel like a ghillie suit, and I've seen a
Exactly,
lot-
like hunting gear.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of this. Like I said, this comes from 2009. It was on the rocky hillside near Mount St. Helens. 2 hikers managed to record what some could think would be an authentic Sasquatch. The original video had much to be desired in quality. So close up, the creature was done. What do you think? This was, like I said, on Sasquatchable, and I saw it in a couple other posts. These videos, they get the rounds. They start popping up again after a number of years. But I really feel like this was a guy in a ghillie suit out there hunting.
Because it's pretty cold right there, correct?
I would think, but I don't know if they allow him to hunt there. I don't know.
Well,
that'd
it
be the
could be
question.
just like a cold hood. Like you could still wear that as cold wear. He's got the hood on to keep his head
Yeah.
protected and a thick coat.
Who knows where it's a Sasquatch.
But he walks like a dude.
It does seem like to me like he walks like a total dude does.
He's got a swagger.
Swag. Maybe
got
Bigfoot's got some swag, man.
He's
All
got
right.
some swag.
Number 6. This is something me and Jamie have been talking about since we both have had, the plague. The flu. How much I've been sick. Jamie's been sick. And it's just because my kids were sick. And everybody's been sick. It's all over the news. Feel like, telling you to take the vaccine and the flu vaccine. I've known a ton of people that got it. They had the flu vaccine, all that stuff. So this comes from Unexplained Mysteries. Millions of viruses are raining down on us every day. Just what we need to hear. Research, which was conducted by a team of scientists in Spain, Canada, and the U.S., aimed to find out how near identical viruses manage to keep turning up on opposite sides of the planet. By taking samples from high up in Spain's Sierra Nevada mountains, they discovered that billions of viruses and tens of millions of bacteria were being swept up in the planet's atmosphere, cleared across vast distances, then deposited on a regular basis. Every day, more than 800 million viruses are deposited per square meter above the planetary boundary layer. That's 25 viruses for each person in Canada. Roughly 20 years ago, we began finding genetically similar viruses occurring in every different environment around the globe. The preponderance of long-resident viruses traveling the atmosphere likely explains why. It's quite conceivable to have a virus swept up into the atmosphere on one continent and deposited on another. And you know what I thought about when I read this article, Jamie? And they've said, people, they think researchers and anthropologists and that and microbiologists theorized that the reason back in the day people thought comets were bad omens, that usually plagues were followed by them. Something passing in our atmosphere, or they see a shooting star, it would be a bad omen. And
Interesting.
A meteor comes down, and I think we've had some meteor hits. I don't know. I also think we also have a lot of people traveling, but when they find it up in the mountains, it's undeposited. They're finding the bacteria and the same viruses there. That's not from travel or people. That's coming from the sky. I don't know. Then you got
We
people,
also just had the asteroid that came really close to Earth too.
It makes you wonder. Crap, we're screwed if that's the case. They're just raining. Viruses are naturally raining down on us. I don't know.
Yeah, well.
All right, let's move on to the last one. I watched the live feed of this, of course, I'll admit. Elon Musk.
Too.
Oh, yeah. Elon Musk, Tesla, overshot Mars's orbit, but it won't reach the asteroid belt as claimed. This comes from The Verge. Let's see. Elon Musk's Tesla Roadster, which launched on top of the SpaceX Falcon Heavy on Tuesday, is going farther out into the solar system than originally planned. The car was supposed to be put on a path around the sun that would take the vehicle out to the distance of Mars's orbit. But the rocket carrying the car seems to have overshot that trajectory and has put Tesla in an orbit that extends beyond the red planet's path. However, the Tesla won't be making it to the asteroid belt, as SpaceX CEO Elon Musk originally claimed. After launch, Tesla cruised through space for a good 6 hours, a trip that was also live-streamed by SpaceX. This coast phase was meant to show off a special orbit maneuver for the U.S. Air Force before the rocket completed one final engine burn in space and put the car on its final orbit. It looks like the burn might have happened somewhere over South California, as some people in the area started reporting sightings of rockets igniting in the night sky. I love that, the media attention for space and travel. I love what Elon Musk is doing. Hey, Rob. I see Rob has joined us. How you doing tonight, Rob?
Oh, pretty good, I guess. How about you?
Doing good. But, yeah, putting the roadster up in space, you know how much money that had to cost extra to do that? And then, seriously, that's kind of taxpayers' money. Because you know how much government subsidies Tesla gets? That they really don't make any money. They're doing all this crazy. He's selling flamethrowers. He might make some money off of that. If you haven't seen that, but
what was the actual point behind doing that?
That's what I want to know. I'm like, but why?
Because he knew he could get the car into space. As long as it's floating in space, it's a success. Even though they didn't hit any of the trajectories they wanted, they got those 2 rockets to land on their own, which was cool. But
that is pretty cool.
One of the developers had mentioned that they actually had seen a spaceship. He's a UFO spotter, and all he kept saying was how unimpressed he was with the design of this craft over and over. So I almost think they did it to prove, who's got a cooler car type thing. Like, are they bragging to the aliens?
Well,
like,
he threw a
check
junk
this out.
Tesla up there. He threw a junk Tesla up there, actually. Like, they found one junked out, wouldn't even work. I want to know, they say that's a dummy, but I just picture Elon Musk. If he's a Bond villain, there's some MI6 agent in that suit flying up there, like in our own version of Moonraker. He's like
Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, 006. You will be in space in a Tesla Roadster forever. I don't know. But
I like Perry's comment on there. That's exactly was my thoughts. Because he can.
because he can. I like the approach. I love that Tesla's doing what he's doing, and huge kudos to picking the song he did. Instead of going with Space Odyssey, which most people know with David Bowie, he went Life on Mars, which is a great song. For people listening on or watching on Facebook, we do play music on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network, so you'll hear some quiet here when we cut to commercial break. But we will be back with our guest, Jimmy Petonito. We're going to talk about his experiences with ghost hunting with the Warrens, which is amazing. That would be a dream come true. And his experiences with exorcisms, the haunting houses he's investigated. He's a radio host. Been pumped all day to get him on. All right, guys, we'll be back with you in just a few minutes. All right, tonight's guest is Jimmy Petonito. And if I butchered that, Jimmy, I'm sorry. We'll get you here in a second. He is a paranormal investigator. He's been doing it for a very long time. He's worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren, Bishop Robert McKenna. I know he was featured in Hostage to the Devil, talking about Malachi Martin. Definitely want to talk about that and his meeting with him. He's also a radio host of the Haunted Chronicle radio show. We'll get more information on where you can check that out tonight. We will have calls into the show after the second commercial break. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, you there with me, Jimmy?
I am.
Now, did I totally butcher your last name? I forgot to ask how to say your last name.
You did it better than I do.
It's one of those things. It's like, yeah, it's however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah.
How you doing tonight? Thank you for joining us.
I have a prepared statement, Jason.
Oh, uh-oh.
I am happier than a green-crested nuthatch sitting in an old birch tree doing flips around the branches like he's Mary Lou Retton.
That's pretty happy. I would have to be really happy.
Really?
Well, I'm happy to have you on the show finally.
Thank you.
You got a lot of experience in the paranormal. How did you get involved in this? What was the thing that got you? Was it a childhood fascination, or is it something later in your life?
You know what? I always look for the reason because everybody asks the reason why. But I was always a creepy kid. I'll make this kind of short. I mean, I was a kid that would sleep in his toy box with his arms crossed, like with a cape on, and my father would come into the room. Jimmy, where are you? And I'd creak out of the toy box,
like Eddie Munster.
Yeah, and I couldn't get enough. I don't know why. I was just always read any kind of ghost books when the little wagon comes to your school and sells books and. People are buying Clifford, and I was buying anything I could find about hauntings and the TV shows back then, and In Search of, and Sightings and all that.
They're bringing that back. They're bringing back In Search of, because I watched the reruns of that, like on the Sci-Fi Channel. They would have reruns of it, and I loved it. But they're bringing it back with Zachary Quinto, who played Leonard, same character Spock
cool.
as Leonard Nimoy. So I was like, that's pretty fitting. I can't wait for that.
And you know what's great about YouTube is that I searched for In Search of episodes from way back, and I found the exact episode that I watched as a kid. That was the first time I actually went down the basement with a flashlight looking for ghosts.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was called In Search of Ghosts, and Hans Holzer was the guest. And I went down with a flashlight. I said, "Mom, where's the flashlight? I need a flashlight. I got to find ghosts." So I wasn't scared. I was looking,
But if it was Hans Holzer, he'd be like, "No, you have to live. You have to be on a ley line. A ley line." Like everything for him was like geomagnetic and stuff.
I did have an incident as a kid. If you want to hear that one.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I definitely didn't come from like a haunted house at all, but one day, one night, my mother had had a friend over in the kitchen, and she said, "Jimmy, go in your room and don't come down." So I was a little kid. I was like 7 or 8 or something, and I had the lights on and everything. I was listening to a baseball game on the radio, and it was a radio that sits on the the counter with 2 big dials on it,
right?
The volume and the tuner. And I was laying on my stomach with my feet propped backwards, kind of like bent up in the air. I was listening to the game. So all of a sudden, the radio started changing stations by itself. And I was like, what am I going to do now? And I look over at it, and I could actually see the tuner moving back and forth on the radio. So I'm freaked out, and I run down. And my mother doesn't remember this because to her it was like a blip in her
Right.
history of life, and to me it was a big deal. And she said, I said, Mom, there's a ghost in my room. And then I forgot to tell you, it threw my legs down after I kind of noticed that it was changing the stations.
Oh, like what? Like slaps your legs down?
Yeah, like hit my legs down.
Oh, wow.
Onto the bed. So I ran down and said, Mama, there's a ghost in my room. It threw my legs down. It changed the station. She goes, get back up in your room. There's no such thing as ghosts.
Now,
So
you could beat on the
was,
floor like Linda Blair. That would have got her attention.
Yeah. or did the spider walk down the stairs? Would have been
Oh,
good.
God, don't say that. That's the director's cut, man, and that thing freaks me out. Oh, talk about freaking me out. Well, so, for me, yeah, I had a lot of weird experiences as a kid. That's definitely, when you're saying, like, I think you're probably like 10 years older than me, but for me, when I was a kid, there wasn't still that very much to find. And
No.
I had the same interest, and yeah, like you, I'd be looking for. If I was at the library, I was always like picking up those unexplained mystery books or those series books, sets books, like different topics, like a Encyclopedia Britannica for paranormal. I loved that stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah, and anything, like you said, anything Bigfoot, UFOs, just all that stuff fascinated me when I was a kid. Most of us, I think.
Not everybody. I know plenty of people think I'm crazy.
Most of us listening.
Yeah, the people listening tonight. Yeah, probably. So, what point in your life did you decide I want to investigate this? I want to get into learning about the paranormal or what's going on?
Well, remember, because I'm old, we didn't have internet back then, kids, and there was no, like, you hear of haunted places. Like, I live in Connecticut, so I used to hear of haunted cemeteries in Connecticut, which to me was a world away because I had no way of getting there. And I didn't know where they were. There was no way to find out unless you knew somebody. So when I was, maybe 20, early 20s, whatever, I found out where a couple of the supposedly haunted cemeteries were, and I drive there, and as far as I knew, that the ghosts just there's a one, for example, the White Lady of Union Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
That was one that I assumed that she just comes out and walks around and you take her picture. I didn't have any more information, so I went there and I took a roll of film, and I was waiting for her to come out, and of course nobody came walking around. So I said, let me take my roll of pictures, and this is back in the olden days with a film,
Yeah, nothing easy. Like, I'm just gonna snap some pictures with my iPhone.
Yeah. So I took a roll of film just to say, just as a souvenir, I was here, and that might have been it, But then after I got my pictures developed, I got a couple weird things on the film, which that misty stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
And now who knows what it was, but I was curious, and I went back, and then you don't get something every time, but I've gotten not just an orb or a smoke. I mean, I got some solid looking stuff. So I started meeting people there that were also taking pictures, and then I had a whole album of pictures and I had nobody to share them with. And then I met this lady, Debbie, who she showed me her pictures, and we made friends. And she said, the Warrens have classes on Monday nights, and they'd love to see these pictures. So the next Monday I went to the class, and I remember I went with my friend, and he says, Jim, don't let them have your pictures because, of course you think they're going to be worth money or something,
Yeah.
Like, don't let them have your pictures because they'll take them. It's like, yeah, oh, no, I'm not going to give anybody anything. So as soon as I got there, oh my God, these are great. Can I have them? Yeah, take them. Yeah, I don't care. So they still show some of them in their shows today. They still.
Yeah, I've heard that.
25 years later.
They were like, they love to collect anything that had paranormal. I mean, obviously the Haunted Museum. I mean, back then, were you aware, like, who the Warrens were? And they're like, oh, we got the Warrens. Did you read enough back then to know, like, wow? That would be, like, the paranormal jackpot.
I had a couple books when I was, I don't know when they came out, but I was younger.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name, The Haunted. And there's a couple books I had that I'm friends with the people that were, involved in the books that were the homeowners now. And then I remember I saw them in college. I saw them do a lecture. So that's as much as I knew of them. I didn't know how big they were, like, because they're local. You don't know how big they were worldwide.
Yeah, you kind of grew up. You kind of were a perfect place for the paranormal, like, the paranormal Disneyland there at the time. With the
exactly.
Warrens.
It was just all luck. It was all luck.
So what was it like when you first met Ed and Lorraine? I mean, what were they like?
You know what the coolest thing was? I thought. I mean, I don't have any like amazing story about meeting them or anything. But what was cool? I'll say this first. When I first, I'll say this, then I'll go back to the beginning. When I first went to their house, because I investigated a home and I brought them back evidence so they could review it. I went in their kitchen and I said, "Wow, there's normal. Like I expected to be skulls and decorations all over the place, and it was so cool because they're just like normal people that do that.
They got that stuff out in the garage.
Yeah. And but it was nice because when they had the classes, it was like I said, nowadays everybody, there's so much more information.
Right.
But back then, it's like they would show us how to interview people. Like nobody was showing you don't know way of knowing this stuff, how they'd interview people, with investigative techniques they'd use. We'd listen to whole interviews with, like that. There's a famous case, Maurice. I think.
Oh my God, the one where his head like cracks open and
yeah,
bleeds
yeah,
and stuff.
and
that video freaks me out, man, and the story behind it too.
That one's legit, really.
Oh, yeah.
And they showed us like the whole interview from beginning to end, and they'll stop it every so often saying, why they asked this or what this, clicked in their head after hearing. It was just like amazing going through each.
Oh my God, I would kill to have been there.
Yeah.
To hear them talk about it. Because I mean, that for people that don't know, there's a video you can go find it on YouTube. Ed and Lorraine Warren. Maurice was his first name. I can't remember his last name, but
there we go.
Yeah, they were doing a exorcism right on him, and you see his head like crack open. He starts to bleed, and his eyes like turn to slits. And
yep.
I mean, the story, if I remember right, he later on ended up blowing his wife's arm off the shotgun, and then ended up turning the shotgun on himself and killing himself.
Correct. And during the exorcism, he had slashes. And it's like nowadays with Photoshop and all these, he could fake almost anything. I mean, back then they have a video of slashes appearing.
VHS tape or beta tape, probably.
Yeah, they had slashes appearing on him, on his stomach and chest while he was crosses and stuff. And there was a moment. There's a part of the film where I'm not going to, exaggerate, but it was like, I think it was like 2 or 3 minutes where he didn't blink at all. And it's the scariest thing ever. His eyes just totally changed.
Yeah, it freaks me out every time I've seen that video. I've showed that to people. Like, I think that Ed and Lorraine Warren have had their critics, over the years. They definitely took to media attention, but they were the ones that got it out there. You know what I'm saying? Nobody else was doing what they were doing,
nope.
And they definitely were the legit thing. I mean, they dealt with real cases, real dark stuff, and
that is the sad part because people think I've had people tell me, I told you I'm very humble. Like I didn't do anything special. I was lucky, and people say like I've been investigating paranormal for 10 years, and you say you saw this and heard these. Like no, they were the only people in the whole New England, as far as I know, or the East Coast, doing this to that extent. Yeah. And they were getting the worst of the worst calls and only taking the worst ones. So we got some, really cool cases to go to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I say, man. Like, if I could take a time machine and go back to when they were doing the early days of investigation and what they were doing, oh, my God, I'd be in heaven.
Yeah. It was before I had kids, so I wasn't, I had nothing to do. So every, 3 or 4 nights a week, we were going to different areas of the state or different states to investigate places all week long. And
it wasn't just like any places with them. You're going to some pretty dark cases usually with them, I would think.
Yeah, I mean some were nothing, some were huge. You didn't know.
Yeah, well, that's how it is with the paranormal. Even on the regular haunted cases, you never know what you're going to get. Some nights they're going to bite and talk and dance for you, and some nights they're not going to do anything.
That is the saddest thing because, people, you interview someone and they'll say, my dish flew off the table this day, and then 3 years later, my window flew out, or and it's like, what are the odds that when you're there for overnight or two that you're actually going to catch something?
Right.
So it's hard that way.
These are sporadic for people most of the time. They're not like an everyday constant thing. Sometimes they are, but I think they're more sporadic. What do you feel like what was the main things you really felt you learned from working with the Warrens?
Keep questioning. I mean, I'm probably going to think something way better afterwards. But for example, if you want to talk about it later, there's one particular case where we interviewed them, the family, and other members of the group interviewed them at different days. So we all kind of interviewed them at different times, and then we were interviewing them a second time because we could, how you try to find out usually, when there's a haunting, what happened. What happened right before it started? Like, what was significant? Did you meet somebody new? Did somebody die? What happened? To start everything. And these people would never give us an answer. They said, we don't know. And then we asked them, we interviewed them again like it was brand new. And all of a sudden, the 14-year-old son says, oh, yeah, we did a demonic ritual in Florida.
Oh, that just suddenly comes up.
that kind of like, weeks later, everything started.
What is it with the kids and the demonic ritual? This is probably the 80s, right?
Well, yeah, he claims he wasn't involved. His cousin was involved, but he was watching. But it's who knows.
Now, and that's what you seem like with the Warrens, that they took on a lot of cases like that. They were involved with the demonic, and that what to you when you were with them did you think was like one of the best? Like, okay, yeah, I really. I don't know where your religious ties are, Jimmy, but like the case that made you like, yeah, there's demons. This is real.
I'm a good Catholic boy. I'm not good, but I'm Catholic. It's the thing that made me, I'm not going to say scared, but the thing that convinced me that there's something else there was during an exorcism, we were, me and the crew, there was, we had like 7 people in the core group basically, and whoever was available on Wednesday was exorcism day.
Wednesday exorcism day.
Yeah, and whoever was available would meet at the church in Monroe, and with McKenna, and we'd help set up. We had a routine. We knew it after a while. We go get the chairs from outside. We get the restraints. We'd help set up the area for them, and we'd coordinate. This was after that primetime live special,
right?
That people from all over the country were calling.
I saw that when I was a kid. I don't know if you heard the beginning of the show. Yes, when I was a kid. No, I want to really quick. We'll get to the story, but I want to mention that like I said, there wasn't a lot of paranormal things. There wasn't Ghost Hunters yet on TV or anything. No. So anything paranormal on TV on a major news network. As a kid, I was like, boom, we're watching that. Mommy, get the VHS tape out and make sure that records that. I want to see that. And she'd be like, oh, jeez. Because it was anything paranormal, boom, I watched all the Sightings episodes, and I remember that. I recorded that and watched it because I couldn't watch it live, I don't think. And, when I found out later, I'm like, oh, this guy on my friends list, he was a part of that.
Yep.
Yeah, major influence on my life, that news special.
Wow.
But go ahead with your story, sorry.
Oh, what was it? I told you I lose track of what I'm talking about.
Well, we're talking about after this case with the Warrens.
We set up the church and everything, and today, this particular day, we had one person go pick up the woman from the airport because she was from Virginia, and I'm not exaggerating. She was 90 pounds, 100 pounds tops, tiny woman, and I don't know why I said that, but she did break out of every restraint we had, but. We didn't know her because, like I said, we had a pretty large group, and one person would be the contact person for that. Each people had their own people they're working with around the country, and then we'd coordinate when with interviews and travel and getting them here and all that. So somebody else was the contact person. We just knew she was a woman from Virginia, so we're setting up the room, the church, and everything. And the only guy that showed up with me was he was a police officer. And we're waiting for the woman to come, and we're just chatting, and he said, "Oh, I got into a fight with my mother last night on the phone. I said terrible things, and as soon as I go home, I want to apologize." So that was just part of our conversation. So during the middle of the exorcism, you don't know if the people are acting up, if they're mentally ill, or you don't really know unless you get some signs or something. So during the exorcism, she's like, I'm going to get all of you. We're going to get all of you. It might not be today, tomorrow. It could be years. You're in trouble and all this. So then she turns around and points to the police officer. She goes, "And you, the way you talked to your mother last night, that's disgusting."
Oh, jeez.
Like,
there's your sign.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
So I say, "Oh, now is everything else she's saying right too?" I don't know.
But yeah, to know that, and that's what they describe. That these when the demon comes out. I mean, when you're in that room, do you feel it too? Do you like? Is that it's just people talk about feeling it.
The one, this one gets me in trouble. This one particular case, it was in the Bronx, New York, with this woman that got involved with some kind of voodoo. Me and my friend Scott, she already had one exorcism at the church, and we had a whole line of people waiting, So she was like, I feel like it's going to come out. And she lived stories and stories up in New York. She had a balcony. So I'm afraid it's going to throw me out the window or something. So it was like, what do we do? So we asked permission from Bishop McKenna. Could we go there and pray with her or try to do some stuff to hold it at bay until her next exorcism, which is like a month away. So me and Scott got there. We always start with the Litany of the Saints. And we started that. She started acting up, talking in a different voice, different language. She put her head down, and she looked back up at us. Just the whites of her eyes were showing, and she was looking back and forth, talking in an old man's voice, saying, "Who are you?" pointing at us. So my friend Scott goes, "Skip to page 23," which was basically an exorcism. And I was just talking to him today about it. I said, I wish we could duplicate that feeling in that room to show people that it was nothing. I can't even explain it. There's no way I can explain it. And it wasn't bad. It was like good, like something was protecting us. You know what I mean? It was like a blanket. It was I never felt it before or again.
So you felt like kind of like a divine presence there protecting you at the time.
That's the only way I could describe it.
Wow.
And it didn't feel like, like you think with all lights and angels flying around. It was a totally different feeling, but it was like such protection that it was amazing.
Well, that kind of brings me something. I watched Hostage to the Devil, the Netflix documentary where you're in. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned your first time meeting Malachi Martin. For people that don't know, is one of the most preeminent exorcists. Tons of interviews. I mean, I listened to all the Art Bell interviews with Malachi Martin. Go ahead.
No, you listen to Art Bell, Malachi Martin shows, and that's all you. That's Demonology 101 right there for you guys, you're graduates.
Yeah, I mean, he was so interesting. The first time you met him, you said in the documentary that he saw lights behind you or something like that. I was curious what that was. I love the guys that made the movie, but they edit stuff out, and it's like I don't have a chance to go back and say, no, this is what I said. You kind of moved it around a little bit. It was funny because I'm a part of the group. I was a part of the group at the time, and they announced that Malachi Martin was coming to speak, so they had a lot more people come as visitors and pay to be part of the audience. So I said I sat in the back purposely because it sounded like on the thing, like I'm so big that I have to sit in the back. I wanted to, I don't want to be in the spotlight. That's not what it was. It was that I was letting the visitors sit in the front. So anyway, there, I don't know, might have been 50 people there in a small room. And I, after he spoke for about an hour or two, I had a book. I had Hostage to the Devil book, and I wanted him to autograph it for me. So I was in line, and he kept looking down the line at me, and I was like maybe he sees that I'm bad or something. Like I was saying, like,
what does
am I
he
possessed?
see?
That's what I'd be worried about.
You worry about that too at the church.
Right.
Is something going to come out? So he kept looking at me, and I was like nervous, and he got up to me and he goes, were you sitting in the back of the room there? And I was like, yeah. He goes, you have such a glow about you. He goes, there's lights flying. I forget the exact words. There's like lights flying off of you like I never saw in my life before. You're my favorite person in this room. Sit next to me. And then there's pictures, and I feel like I'm the stupid teacher's pet that everybody hated because I was sitting I saw pictures later, and I forgot the part that he said sit next to me. So in all the pictures, I'm sitting right next to him, like, ooh.
I would have had a dumbass grin on my face. I know that.
Yeah, like they hate me, but they want to be there. So I'm probably missing a big part, but that's how I met him, and it was a big deal. And then his best friend Rob Morrow, who helped out with the movie, who's the one who I think he was a ex-CIA, retired CIA guy. He's the one that would drive him. This is the coolest story ever. He would drive him to where he had to go all over New York to go to exorcisms or wherever he had to be. And I asked Rob later. I told him that story. And I said, now that, when you're younger, you think differently. I said, now that I'm older, I said, he probably says that to, someone in every group to make them feel special that day.
I was like, I get to be the special kid.
Yeah, yeah. And he goes, I've never heard him say that to anybody ever.
And so I was just really curious about his, like, when he says you're glowing and I see lights, like, did he have a way of seeing things about people that he didn't talk about?
I think that he hinted at it, and I got to listen to his interviews again.
Yeah, I wondered.
There's one episode on Art Bell that he, you could hear a hint of he wants to say that he could kind of sense some stuff.
That's what I always wondered.
But one time when he was talking, when you're trying to you're trying to remember your thought and you look up in the air to your, right or left or whatever.
Yeah.
He was doing that, and then, but for a longer time than normal, and then he'd kind of nod, like I was like, who's he talking? Who's he talking to up there? So I think there's something.
I've always wondered that, like you said in the interviews, there's some hints to that, but he never comes out and says it.
I don't know if he ever did, but he was definitely, to me, it looks like he was communicating with someone that was up there somewhere.
Yeah, and do you believe the work he did, what they kind of like, I guess, propose in Hostage Devil, that the work he did cost his life?
I don't know. I think that I don't think that they didn't lie at all in the movie, but I think that he was an older guy. He's had health problems, so. I mean, the story is that I think he was reaching for a book, and there's over 50 stories on the internet. And the story that I know is that he was in his library reaching for a book on a step stool or something, and the thing kicked out from underneath him. And that's what, put him in the hospital. And my friend Rob said that Malachi Martin called him and said, "Old Scratch has finally got me."
Right.
So, like, you don't know if it was one or the other. Was it an accident or but I mean, if you listen to what he says on the interviews, when he says, each exorcism takes a little bit out of you, because I don't know what it is, but it takes it from you, like your little piece of you each time.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
And I believe that. So
that's why I didn't want to ever, people are like, oh, you're in the paranormal, are you trying to become a demonologist? I'm like, no.
No. And especially when I started having kids and stuff, and I was doing that, I was like, you know what, maybe I should stay away for a while.
Yeah, I love going on paranormal investigations, and I am fascinated by the power and what happens and the activity involved around demonic cases. But if I actually get one, I'm looking for help. I'm looking for somebody else to take it out of my hands because I know I can't do it. I know I'm not able to handle it. I'm not,
No.
There's no experts in this field, but there's definitely no experts when it comes to that.
No. I don't. That's what I told you before. I know nothing. I just witnessed a lot of stuff, but I don't do. There's a lot to learn still.
Now, doing these, I know you don't investigate much anymore, but when you were investigating and doing, you did a lot of residential, a lot of people's homes. You were doing like the big historical locations as much, right? You were doing more helping people.
It was like 95% residential.
See, that's how I'm pretty much 95% residential. That's what I do. And
I don't blame people.
No, not at all.
Because I was young, I would go to anywhere possible.
Oh, yeah, me too. I'm going to the well, it is a residential house still, but it's an event. I'm going to the Bel Air house in next month. But I like trying to help people, and people are living in their homes. I'm always worried I'm going to run across one of these cases that's going to be, over my head. Most I haven't yet, thankfully.
Yeah, you never know when it's going to come up either.
Now, working with, one of the people you got too, you've kind of briefly mentioned is Bishop Robert McKenna. What was it like working with him? Oh my God, he was the coolest guy ever. He was like a little guy, skinny, and he was quiet. Like I'd ask him, I didn't want to talk to him that much and bother him, Right. I was like, hey, a little starstruck.
Yeah, he was. When you do, I saw this guy every week, and I said,
oh, wow.
I said, when you fast, what do you do? I said, do you not eat? Because the guy was old and kind of frail. I was
and
like,
taking on demons.
Every taking on demons, and every week he's fasting for 3 days. You need to eat,
right?
Dude. So I remember what I said. What do you eat? He goes, I just have some tea and toast. And then I tell him stories, I tell him personal stories about things that happened. I said, what do I do with this information? That experiences I've had. He goes, just tell your story. But after a while, he was, we would, run the cases past him and go over them with him and show him the evidence and stuff. And after a while, he's like, he goes, he trusted us. He goes, you tell us, you tell me who you think needs help and bring him here. I'm not going to, he's not going to make us go through the whole thing.
It's not like there was a lot of priests going around doing exorcisms back in the 80s or 90s. So I'm sure his plate was pretty full all the time.
Yeah, and especially because the Roman Catholic Church kind of tries to keep it more of a secret, and the traditional Catholic Church wants people to see this and put it in the public so people are more knowledgeable about it. And so this does happen, and if somebody it's happening to, we could try to help. So they were more, they weren't after publicity, but they didn't mind having a videotaped or being on a TV show because they wanted people to see.
Well,
what's going on.
The part of the classic. I hate to put it this way, but the way the church is a fear of evil. It does. I mean, look at The Exorcist. When it came out, how many people started worrying that they were possessed and started going into their churches, burning their Ouija boards. And my mom burned her Ouija board after seeing The Exorcist.
I got a church story for you.
Yeah.
If you want.
Yeah.
The first exorcism I ever went to, Lorraine said, we have an exorcism tomorrow. It was at somebody's home. And she goes, who can make it? And back then, believe it or not, I'm a tech idiot. But I had a video camera, and that was a big deal back then. Only some people had a video camera. So she goes, yeah, you can videotape it. So she goes, but anybody that comes has to be in a state of grace. And I said, what's a state of grace? And she goes, you just do a confession before you go. So I immediately went to a local church, and I said, bless me, Father. It's been like 2 years, 3 years since my last confession. No. Yeah. So he said, why are you here now? And I said, because I have an exorcism tomorrow. He goes, what? He actually, you're supposed to have privacy with the curtain. Yeah. He pushes the curtain aside, pulls me by my arm, and sits me down in a chair. He goes, tell me about this.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
So they're even interested in that stuff.
Yeah, because they don't talk about it. Most of them don't know much about it. It's a kind of from what I understand from the Malachi Martin interviews, it's kind of a small circle of people within the church. It was, what is it? I'm not Catholic, so I get this wrong, but they had the Reformation, where they changed from the Latin to English, and they just changed the church so much to be more modern. Like in the 60s?
Right. The 60s, Vatican II.
Vatican II, yeah.
Agreement, yeah.
Yeah, so some people felt like that took the steam and power out of the church. I don't know. I'm not a Catholic, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll have more questions about that.
Let's go ahead and cut to our last commercial break here. When we get back, we can open up the phone lines if that's all right with you and take any questions from callers. We'll have a couple ways for people to call into the show. But one of the things I want to touch on when we get back, too, is your experiences, some of the technical more stuff. I mean, like EVP capture, some of the stuff, evidence you've captured over the years on that. We'll talk about that. All right, guys. And, of course, people watching on Facebook, we play music on Late Night in the Midlands Radio Network, so you won't hear it. So you'll hear some quiet. But when we get back, we're going to talk about many things paranormal. Call on the show. Join the discussion. We'll have the Skype line and the phone lines open. And, we don't know where this conversation will go. One thing leads to another, right? All right, guys. Be back with you in just a few minutes. Tonight's guest is Jimmy Petonito. We're talking about him. He's also known as Mr. Haunted. He's had a lot of experience in the paranormal. We talk about some big names tonight that he's worked with. The Warrens, Ed and Lorraine, most classic people in the paranormal, when it comes to the cases now being popularized in movies like The Haunting in Connecticut, and, that was on The Haunting, and The Conjuring, whatever, and Annabelle, and now people are starting to know who they are. I've known for years, And now and people at work are like, oh, weren't there those guys in the movies? Well, this guy got to live the experience I wanted to. I would love to have met Ed and Lorraine Warren in their prime when they were investigating and dealing with these really dark cases. And then, working with Bishop Robert McKenna, and the amount of experience this guy has got to be around is incredible. And Jimmy's going to talk about those experiences and the evidence he's captured. EVPs. I'm a big EVP fan. We're not going to be playing any of them tonight, but we're going to talk about some of the evidence he's had. And then we're going to take phone calls into the show, guys. I already got one person on a Skype line. It's an audio-only Skype line. It's J Bland 00. There's also the video Soup live chat, 800 live chat. You can call into that. That line is open. It's Soup live chat, 800 live chat. And then when somebody's off on my Skype line, we have a phone line as well, 219-230-4444. That's 219-230-4444. You can call into the show. If you call in and I hang up on you, don't take it personally. I got somebody else on the line, so try calling back after they hang up. All right, let's get to our guest. Still there with me, Jimmy?
Yep.
We do have a phone call on the line, so we're going to start off with that. I believe we have, I think it's Nicole on the line. How you doing tonight, Nicole?
Hi, kid. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. You got a question for our guest tonight?
Hi, Nicole's my friend.
Oh, awesome.
Hi, yes. How are you?
Hiya.
I was wondering, I'm interested in studying demonology. What would you suggest we should start?
I don't consider myself a demonologist at all. But I would start with Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin.
Yeah.
And listen to all his interviews on Art Bell. I think that's a great starting point.
And it might make you go, yeah, I don't know if I want to do That's what it does to me. It scares the crap out of me.
No.
Do you have any other
totally
questions? Do you have any other questions for Jimmy, Nicole?
Oh, should I have? I was wondering what would be the scariest case you've been on.
What kind of case?
Scariest.
The scariest case. It could be a long story if you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
There's one particular house, and let's do this one in Waterbury, Connecticut. Actually, it was really cool because it was like we used to tag along with them on cases, and I still work with the group too. Still now, but back then we would usually go as a group until we were more experienced. And the first time me and my friend Rick usually worked as a team. And Lorraine called us. It was like, it was late at night, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock. And she said there's this family in Waterbury, and they won't go inside the house till someone gets there. And that was like your dream call back then,
Right.
So we didn't even know. Like I said, this was before MapQuest. You probably had to get a map out and, figure it out. But anyways, so we got there, and the woman was crying on our front steps. It was already at nighttime, and she was crying, and so what's going on? And she goes, there's a shadow person up there, and some people can't see it, and I don't want to go back. She's crying. I don't want to go back up there. So I said, let's go up there. And it was a 3rd floor apartment and a 3-story house. And when we got to the door, we couldn't. It wouldn't open. We were jiggling the knob, and it just wouldn't open. So we did the police thing. We put our shoulder into it, like we were breaking in. And an exercise bike flew across the room, which we led to. It kind of like the only way it would make sense is it seemed like the exercise bike handle was wedged underneath the doorknob.
Oh wow!
So she says, I didn't leave it like that, and it was the back door. I'm sure it's against codes now, but back then nobody cared. Their back door was kind of almost like nailed shut with boards because it was a fire in the past, and that was the only way out really. So. I don't know. So anyways, that was kind of weird. And then first thing, that we do was interview. So we set up an interview area in the kitchen with the video camera and the tape recorder and everything. And during the whole interview, she's telling us the story of what's going on. And the whole time she's pointing at random places going, there it is. Don't you see it? Don't you see it? And we're like, no, I don't see anything. And I said, what do you see? And she says, it's a shadow of a man. He's right there. And like, me and Rick are looking at each other like, oh boy,
Yeah.
So we actually, we're not believing her. Nowadays, I learned a lesson. So she said, it just went into the bedroom. So I left all our equipment where we're interviewing her. I left it there, and we walked into the bedroom, and she's pointing in the corner. She says, do you see it? And, me and Rick look at each other like, yeah, now we see it. And it was like she said, it was a shadow, definitely like a man, like, 5'11", kind of slim, but it was standing like 2 feet out of the wall.
Oh, wow.
In the corner. So she said, did you see it? I was like, yes, we do see it. So I look at Rick, I said, what do we do? So I said, I was thinking to myself, do I go get my camera and video camera from the other room to try to capture it? Or should I stay here and not enjoy it, but, take it in and experience it, because it might go away when I leave. Like, I want to see the thing.
Right.
So we were kind of like stuck. Like, what do we do? And and we were maybe 8 feet away from it. We're in the doorway of the room. So we were even trying to move the door, like, because we couldn't believe it was really there. We're like trying to move the door and play with the shadows. Like, maybe it's a shadow play or something. And it wouldn't move. So my friend Rick says, let's go try to touch it. So
that's not a good idea, probably, but okay.
Probably not the best idea, but we were young, and I'm honest.
Usually they move fast.
This one, we took like a step or two towards it, and as we took a step, it turned to its right and took a step and kind of disappeared right into the wall. And then we went around the wall to see if it, came out the other side, and it wasn't. Nothing was there. During that same case, there was one night where we were investigating, and they turned the power off in the apartment because they were going to leave. So we had no power, and it was dark. We only had a flashlight, and we were in separate rooms. And the woman of the house. We kind of met in the hallway we were talking about something, but we met in the hallway to say something to each other. And out of nowhere, you heard, hey, you, like that in our ears, like out loud.
Oh, wow.
So we both said, did you hear that? And she goes, yes. So what did it say? I said, what did it say? What did you hear? And she goes, hey, you. And that's creepier than any EVP because it was out loud.
Yeah, disembodied voice. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've gotten those. Well, thank you for calling in, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you for taking my call.
Have a great night, hon. One of the things, Nicole's part of it is doing, experimenting with ITC, electronic, transcommunication or instrumental transcommunication. Back when you were doing it, they didn't really, nobody was really using ghost boxes and stuff back then, I don't think, right? What are your thoughts on where the paranormal's kind of going with that? There's a lot of, there's apps and there's ghost boxes, and, people are doing a lot of, we do ITC once a month on this show, almost once a month, where we do live shows where we have spirit boxes and apps and all kinds of stuff playing through the show audio, and people calling in, and we're getting responses to them. Have you tried to, experiment with that now?
Oh man, I got a bunch of thoughts in my head right now. Well, first of all, when I do my show, we've had EVPs. I'm sure you have too.
Yes,
EVPs on the show.
Yeah,
I had one with Heather Wade.
Yep, I knew. I've heard that one. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, and it came from nowhere. But as far as the ITC stuff, like back then, I only had a cassette, like actual audio cassette recorder, and back then, what we did was. Suppose there was a lot of activity in the child's closet. So we'd put the tape recorder in there for 2 hours, however long the tape is, and then review it when you get home. And now, it's much smarter to do it in real time. So you could, if you get a response, you could, talk back and forth and try to get information. So back then, that's how we did it. And which, has definitely changed now. As far as the apps and stuff, I've played around with the apps and stuff. I just don't. I don't like the pre-programmed words and stuff,
right?
Because I know they kind of need it to manifest the voice sometimes. Even white noise or whatever. But when you get it, when you get an intelligent response, even with the pre-programmed thing, that's definitely helping it out. But then again, it still has the drawbacks of the.
It's not like
words
the
already on
EVP, you just get up pure thin air. We do got another caller on the line, I believe, or you should still be there. Yeah, here we go. Zach, are you there with us?
I am. Jason, how you doing, brother?
Doing good. Glad to have you call in. You always got great questions. What's your question for Jimmy tonight?
Give me an easy one, Zach.
Hey,
You're never easy with Zach.
Jimmy, it's very nice to meet you. Hey, brother. So I do have a question because I took a look at your website. You described two types of demonic control. There was oppressive and possessive. So my question to you is, based on the activity that is going on within a case, does that determine really the level or position of hierarchy that the demonic entity involved in is in? Why or why not?
Well, I'm not sure what hierarchy, but if I could redo my website, I just can't do it because I don't do websites. I would make my page one page only without information, because my philosophies have changed so much over time that I would change a lot of stuff on there. But as far as the oppression, or some people call it obsession, like usually there's an infestation stage where the entity comes into the person. Then the next stage is where it's being bothered or attacked, or it takes partial possession at certain times. Then we get scratches on them or be beaten, but it doesn't have full possession over the person. And then there's like possession, which is like really, I think is pretty rare. But as far as I'm not knowledgeable enough to talk about the hierarchies or that kind of stuff.
Okay, cool.
It would all be opinion,
I told you his questions are tough.
No, it's a good question.
It
It's
is.
just I don't make believe I don't know stuff that if I don't know something, I'll say I'm not sure.
Zach, I know you always have another
All right.
question. Go for it.
Yep, just one more question. So, Jimmy, I wanted to ask you, which case that you have taken on, which one has affected you personally? And can you just describe a little bit about what happened?
Well, there was a case in New Haven, Connecticut, where I always kind of liked that. This is a story for a whole other show about why I feel protected, and I do always feel protected. But this particular case was a Santeria case in New Haven, and why did this affect? Oh, driving. I had a car that never had any issues ever, going back and forth to work, going anywhere, never had any issues. Anytime I'd go to this house for the initial interview, for follow-up interviews, for investigation, my car would overheat the whole ride to the house and back, and I'd have to stop, and let the car cool off, whatever. Then that same case, I remember during the case, I would rarely tell my wife about details about cases because, I don't want to scare her.
Right.
So you're going to bring something home. So, excuse me. During that case, one night I went to bed, and it was still, it was nighttime. We had the hall light on, so it was still a little bit of light in the room. And I think my wife was reading a book or something, and I looked up in the hallway, and I saw this black mass, like cloudy mass, come from the hallway into the bedroom and was hanging around the ceiling. And
Not good.
it went away. It
Not
went
good.
away. But yeah, and then I don't know if you want to hear about the haunted sneakers. That affected us a little bit.
Haunted sneakers?
That's a whole story.
Oh.
I'll just tell you the end part if you want.
Yeah.
That same house that I was talking about with the woman that saw the shadow thing, there was a lot more to that story. One of the things she was complaining about is she had a young boy, a young son. He was, I think, 3 or 4, and he had those little blinking sneakers that blink when you walk.
Yeah.
So they were telling me that, those sneakers. The mother was over the house one night because she was so scared all the time to stay with her, and the mother claims that she saw the sneakers. Then first of all, they complained that they blinked at times they weren't supposed to blink, but I said, they're probably defective or something. But then she goes, no. She goes, I walked through the hallway and looked in the son's room, and I saw them walking across the floor. So that night,
Wow.
I wrote a whole report about what happened at the events of that night. The whole chronological order. And then at the end, I said, the sneakers that blink, and then we're also communicating because there was no meters back then. We were communicating with the sneakers, like, are you male or female?
Wow.
And blink once for yes, two for no thing. And so she goes, I don't want the sneakers in my house anymore. So I took them home and I put them on top of the TV set with the report underneath it. So like I said, I didn't tell my wife about the case. It was around Halloween time. And I went back to that house the next night. So this was like, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. My wife's watching scary movies, of course. And we had the whole apartment back then was decorated with Halloween decorations. The motion ones that the ghosts and stuff that hang from the ceiling. And they're, if you clap, they go off and say boo and then shake around. And we had a mat outside that if you step on it, it says Happy Halloween. So she was watching the scary movies and she noticed the sneakers up on the TV. So she's like, what are those? So she looked at it and then I guess she saw the report underneath it of all the stuff that happened in the house. So she brought it back to the couch and was reading the report. And then she said she kept looking up at the sneakers while she's reading it, and they start blinking, and all the Halloween ornaments started going off. The mat outside was getting stepped on, saying Happy Halloween, and they were when I got home that morning, it was like, I remember it was like just getting light, and she was standing at the door. Never again.
We're just haunted sneakers, honey.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
Well, they say fear from movies and stuff. Like, they say if you live, one of the things I've recommended to clients is, like, stay away from scary movies, stuff that's going to up your fear, because if this is something that feeds off your fear, you're going to give it more power.
Well, you know what? You're right, because I have a Lorraine story about that explains something for people that sometimes have a question. Can I give a shout-out to the official Ed and Lorraine Warren page? They're simulcasting your show tonight. All right, so I remember this is what Lorraine said. She said, you know why people say, of course you investigate during the day so you can see what you're doing, or, so it's well lit or something. But so also we do it during the dark because, like, if you have a creepy basement and it's daylight and, there's all sun shining through the windows and everything, it's not creepy. But turn off all the lights in the house and creep down the stairs and it's pitch black down there. You have a different, you're giving off different energy. Because, so that could affect how, if anything's going to happen.
It's like chum in the water, man.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, thank you, Zach, for calling in, man. You always got really good questions.
All right. Thank you for letting me call it. Jason, Jimmy, it was an honor meeting you, man. Thank you for answering my questions, brother.
Oh, Zach's nice.
Have a good night, everybody.
You too, bud. Yeah, Zach's great. When you talk about, I do that with the residential cases. If the client's up for it, and I always pick the most scared one, I will put them in a room that's got audio monitors and video monitors so I can monitor them, but I'll have them alone in their most scared room in the house if they'll do it, and monitor them for 10 minutes and let them record and have them ask questions. One, to get them to face their fear, but two, because it is chum in the water. And that I think that happens with investors that go to a house and they hear all this activity, and then the people leave you, give you the keys to the house, and they leave. And the investigators, it's not a bravado thing, but we're just used to being alone in the dark, and we're not really afraid anymore. And we're not feeding it. We're not feeding the shark in the room, this thing that wants the fear, if it's something that needs fear. I don't think all of them do. I don't think all paranormal activities fed off of fear. But I think the more darker ones are for sure. And that's why I've always no clients, if you can you can stay with us on the investigation, because I want to, see what happens with you here.
You know what? You asked me before about EVPs.
Mm-hmm.
You said you liked them. I have a few that I could, just little tiny stories if you want.
Yeah.
One particular case we're working on, this woman, this is, when you had the flip phones?
Yeah.
She had this flip phone that was the best EVP machine ever invented, whatever phone she had. And she was showing us at will. She would ask a question into the phone, and almost every time she get an answer. Not all Class A, but some were, and there was always a message. Like,
to always get a message is incredible in itself.
Yeah, she'd use the recorder, and there's always something. And so I thought that I said I want to get something if she's getting them like this. So I was using my regular tape recorder that I had. And I was doing it over and over again, and I couldn't get anything. And maybe it's the way just the phone was a perfect storm for what you need to get a voice. I don't know. but my tape recorder wasn't picking up anything. So I kind of got mad after a while. I said, how come, you're giving her EVPs every time and you're not talking to me? And the only EVP I got that night was clear as day. You're a jerk. And I said,
that's why.
It's smart. It knows,
Well, I would say, when I talk about, we do the ITC stuff, and people, there's some people just seem to get such great responses, and the rest of us sit here like talking to nobody is what we feel like. But right. I swear, it's 50-50. It's not just the device you're using; it's also you. You're the medium for it.
Yeah. Certain people just have a knack for getting pictures or voices, and also my first EVP I ever got. This was back before I was investigating homes and stuff. When I was hanging out in a haunted cemetery, I used to leave the tape recorder. I used to go in about 10, 12 feet and leave the tape recorder, and then stay outside the fence and then go back in and retrieve it later to listen. I'd listen on the way home for, voices. So I did that for weeks, never got anything. And then one day I'm driving home and I hear it sound like kill them all, like that. And I said, that is so corny. I can't even show that to anybody. Oh, I got a cemetery voice that says kill them all, So the next day I went back and and at night, I knew what stone it was just from sight. How I was 12 feet in, it was right here. So I went back to that stone to try to, I said maybe it's a hot spot. So I went back to that stone, and I looked at on the gravestone, the person's name was Gillemon. So I listened back. I said, oh, Zine Gillemon. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Oh,
he was saying his name.
Instead of kill them all, it's Guillemot.
Right.
Mispronunciation. Now, go ahead.
I know I got one more that is interesting. Maybe I investigated. It's called the Curtis House. It's the oldest inn in Connecticut, and it used to be a saloon back in the 1800s. And there was one particular room that's supposedly haunted. So the owners let me stay there for free to just stay for the night, and I was trying to get EVPs, and I got a. I don't. It was so long ago. I didn't. You never think, Jason. You don't think you're gonna be questioned 20 years later about a particular detail, from one of your cases,
right?
So, whatever. I got a name on the tape recorder, a definite name, very clear. So I brought it to the owners. I said, "Hey, does this name mean anything to you?" And they showed me an article they had on one of their walls. That I guess back in the 1890s, 1900 or something. It used to be a saloon, and people used to meet there and play cards and stuff. And one particular evening, I guess a traveler came and was supposedly caught cheating at cards. So they killed him, and they buried him the same night in a cemetery somewhere. And that was the guy's name. So that was kind of cool. Sad, but cool.
It's always when you get those kind of validations. I've had those validations with EVPs and off of spirit boxes, Now you talked a lot tonight about spirits messing with electronic equipment, communicating through the lights of shoes. Whatever evidence have you seen of them using stuff to communicate? What's some of the weirdest things you've seen them use to communicate?
Well, I'm not here to promote a book because it's not going to be out until September. But have you seen my book on my feed at all? The book we're working on?
A little bit.
Well, like I said, I'm not promoting it because it's not available. But it's called Phantom Messages, and me and my friend Bill Hall, who wrote 2 books previously, I called him up to ask him a few questions about because I have no idea how to write a book, and I wanted to write a book about this Midnight Mary is a case in New Haven, Connecticut that no one talks about anymore, but our parents' generation was a big deal, and it's kind of dying out. And I said I would love to research and ask people in the area about that story. I said, I don't know about how does copyright work? If you find stuff on the internet, I don't know how that works.
Right.
How do you? So anyway, long story short, we're saying I want to write another book too, but I just I can't think of a subject. So we're talking for an hour, and at the end of the hour, we said, let's you see this a lot on Facebook, whatever. Oh, my girlfriend texted me this morning, but she's been dead for 3 years.
Yeah,
those
or phone calls from the dead, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So we said there hasn't been a book. I mean, there was a book a long time ago about phone calls from the dead or whatever. But I said, no one's really done a new one about texts and computer messages. And so I just threw it out there on Facebook. I said, hey, does anybody have any stories about being texted by a dead loved one or a relative or from anything like that? So we figured out it'll be any kind of communication involving phone calls, texts, computer messages from dead, unknown, past, present, past, future, aliens, anything like that. And we've gotten I think we have 59 stories in there.
Oh, wow.
And we had no idea there would be that much. And then this is just my circle of friends and the circle after that, so imagine the stories that are out there. I have a few if you want to hear a couple of them. All right, my co-host on my this is one from Speakers. My co-host on the show, she has like a surround sound system in her living room, whatever, and she said she was watching TV one day and she kept hearing. I don't know, it wasn't hooked up. It was just she just moved in. It wasn't. So she said she's hearing voices over the speakers over her head. So she turned off the TV and she said she hears the whisper, but she can't make it out. Yeah. So she calls her daughter down there and she says, "Can you hear this?" She goes, "Yeah, but I can't make it out." They climb all the way up to the ceiling. I hear it, but they're not even. She can see the speakers aren't even wired in. So then I told her. I said, I hate ruining people's story, but I said I've heard that speakers can pick up stuff even if they're not hooked up.
Right.
So I said, do you have that still? She goes, yeah, I saved the video. So she sent me the video, and I put it through Audacity and try to boost it up a bit. And you definitely hear when you hear a voice as opposed to a noise. Right. The people that post something goes, and they go, see, it says David Johnson. So anyways, I definitely hear a voice in there. And then I reversed it just to see if something will come out that way. And it said, Corman is home. And then another one said, Corman is here. So if it was some random trucker signal from going down the highway, why would they say her last name?
And why would it be in reverse either? It wouldn't be in reverse.
Yeah.
I've gotten reverse EVPs a couple times just to blow my mind because, how do they communicate something in reverse?
I did a whole show on because there was another guy in Art Bell that did reverse speech.
Yeah,
experiments, and
O'Neill,
I started
something like that, or I'm trying to remember his name.
But he did a whole show on it. I said that is so freaking interesting. So I started picking apart people's speeches and stuff, and I did a whole hour show on just the ones I found. That was a really interesting subject. I got if you want to hear, I have another story about you said how things communicate through
electronics, using electronic devices like TVs or phones.
I got one right here. A month after my father passed away, my mom bought a brand new digital landline cordless phone. Our previous one used little mini tapes, and the tapes were getting harder to find since everything was going digital.
Right.
So we came home from shopping to our first message on our first digital machine. We were a little too giddy. Unfortunately, it was all white noise, so we thought my brother dialed us by accident. We listened to who they were talking to, and suddenly we heard something clear as day. When my brothers rushed home to hear it, they both heard it, and we said at the same time. It was clearly my dad's voice saying, "I love you." Oh, wow. Then there was a second male voice saying, "There's the light. Let's," and then the message ended. That same night, I'm almost done. The same night, my brother Andy was on his computer, and he got a message on Instant Messenger that said, "The lightning is beautiful up here." And it was from John Message, which made some sense because my older brother was named after my dad, John. So they said maybe it was the brother saying, "The lightning is beautiful up here." But it was a gorgeous night, so Andy was confused. He called John, but John, who was a police officer, had just finished a traffic ticket and was in his squad car doing some paperwork. So my brother ran to look at the screen again, and the message was gone. Oh, wow. And we got a ton of stories like that. I have a TV communication story. If you got time for that.
Yeah, no,
go
for it.
Remember I was saying earlier about we interview people over and over and over again to see if they missed a detail or forgot to tell us something.
Right.
The house, that house I was talking about with the boy that was doing the demonic stuff in Florida, we got the whole complaint that the people had was the TV was talking to them.
Like, Carrie Ann.
Listen to this. They were watching.
Our TV talks to us. I 100% believe what you're about to say
Oh,
before you even say it.
what does it say?
All kinds of stuff. Everything from
Really?
what we're doing to where I've been to what I'm about to eat as I'm putting it in my mouth. It is crazy.
You never
Well,
told
we
me that.
need-
I'm gonna have to hear about that after this. But let's hear Jimmy's story.
We need you for book 2.
Right.
So, like I said, after this comes out, there's gonna be all people that have the story. So we go to the house. We're getting the interview. Okay, what's going on? They said it started on a Friday night. We're watching a Seinfeld rerun. I think it was 11 o'clock at night, and the TV started flipping stations. It was back. Remember the old cable boxes with the red numbers on it, and it
Yeah.
only went up to like 70, I think.
Yeah.
So they said it was just flipping random stations. So of course they think, oh, something's wrong with the cable tonight. We'll go to sleep. So the next night, same time, the cable box starts freaking out again. The 14-year-old son says maybe it's. Remember I told you they did some kind of demonic ritual in
Right.
Florida with his cousin. His cousin committed suicide
Oh, wow.
a couple weeks before. So he says maybe it's cousin whoever trying to communicate to us. When he said that, it was racing from 0 to 70, like they said frantically, like so fast.
It's me.
So they said, I think the mother said, hey, let's say that channel 1 is A and 26 is Z.
Right.
When they said that, it went to 25, 5, then 19, which using that code spelled yes.
Oh, wow.
Right? So the rest of the night, they started asking questions to the TV, and then it would start flipping stations, and they'd write down all the numbers and decipher it later. It told them this whole story about how this man was killed in the apartment. It gave a name, a social security number, how he died. The people carried him out on a carpet. He's buried down the
Holy
street.
moly.
He was never, his murderers were never caught. So this thing was amazing because they said they'd have parties where the neighbors would come over and it greeted you by your age. It knew your age. If you walked in the room, it would go to if you're 24, it says 24, and when you leave the room, it would flash your age 3 times. So they'd have parties showing how it works, So they called the police because the guy says, maybe this is he's a
Somebody
soul
hacked
in
you.
need. He needs help.
Or somebody hacked you. That's what I would think about back
Yeah.
then. Nobody's hacked.
So the police, they called the police to say, this guy, he's. So I took pictures even back then of the police reports that the police witnessed the cable box tell the police officers their phone numbers, social security numbers. You don't know who's going to show up when you make a
Right.
call, but this thing knew all the stuff, and I have in their police report they wrote it.
Wow.
I witnessed the cable box. So what else did it do? Oh, and then also, I don't know. Do you want more of this? Or
Yeah, no, I'm interested. I'm totally interested. I want to find one of these old cable boxes and plug them in
Right.
and see what happens.
So, the second batch of police officers that came over, the guy was a total non-believer in anything like that. He says, the kid's has a second remote and he's using it, and or somebody upstairs.
Yeah, that's what
I'm
I
like,
think.
well, how would it know your phone number or your
Right.
kid's your age, and
Not like they had the internet back then to go look it up.
And also, the scary part is they researched that name they gave and the social security number of the supposed person that was murdered. The person never existed. The social security number never existed. So it's kind of like almost like you using the TV as a Ouija board. They're
And
giving
it's
it a lot
lying to
of recognition by talking to it. So I remember they told the cable company, they said, have the cable company come out and switch boxes, see if that helps, because they didn't know what to do. So they switched cable boxes, and the technician kind of like set it all up and said, okay, let's try it. And they said it wasn't working after they switched. So they said as the woman was leaving the house, she looked back, over her shoulder, and it flashed her age 3 times. So when we got there, we were, we went there a bunch of times to investigate, and one particular night they said, you've been here so many times. When are you going to get us help? Even the church down the street didn't want to help them, And so, you know what? And the thing wasn't even talking anymore. It seemed to be didn't need the TV anymore. It was kind of like, in now.
They talked enough to it to let him into their home.
Exactly. So excuse me. So we said let's go tomorrow night and we'll try to do some prayers. We'll try to help you until we get you a solution. So when we got there, the guy said, the cable box hasn't been communicating, but it did that day, and it said, look out tonight, and then it was flashing 66, 66 over and over again. Real nice, right?
Right.
So we're going to do the whole process we do with, blessed church incense and holy water and prayers, and we're doing the whole thing. So the owner of the house said, do you mind if I play, he had the cassette tapes of the whole Bible, like a whole giant set of them. And he goes, can I play these while you're doing that? I said, of course, it's your house,
Play what you want.
Yeah. So I have video of this. I used to tape everything because you don't know what's going to happen, you know? So I had the video camera going on this, and he said, which one do you want to hear? And I said, honestly, I'm not an expert. I said, just start with tape 1. So he put tape 1 in. It was like one of those stereo systems that sit on the floor, like a big one. And he put the cassette in, and he presses play, and it's talking backwards.
Oh, geez.
Like the tape is playing backwards. And like any backwards speech is creepy, but when you're in the Bible backwards, it's double,
extra, Yeah, extra creepy.
Extra. So I said, take that out. I thought it's not a good idea. So then I said, let's, I guess experiment. Let's try all the other tapes. I don't know if the thing's broken or,
Right. So
he put, we tried 3 or 4 different tapes, and all of them worked perfectly, except for the one I pointed to that we wanted to hear. So also, when we were in that room, their son comes running from another room, and he pulls up his shirt, and he says, he's like screaming. I said, well, what happened? He said, this is how he described it. He was this little muscle guy, and he put his hand up in the air, like maybe 3 feet high. He was with horns. He appeared in front of him and put his head down and charged into him and hit him in the stomach. And then he pulled up his shirt, and he had a big red circle, like a burn mark on his stomach. So we did our thing, and the next morning I called them to see how the night went, and they didn't answer the phone. The next day, didn't answer the phone. I tried I tried for days to call them, and then I finally went over there, and the neighbors said they moved out. So they must have ran out the next day. I don't know what happened.
But I think that tells the honesty of it. People, they kept on saying, well, we're going to get some help. And then they just finally, like, I've had enough. We're out. But that's true sign. People are, are generally going to be scared to get out if they can.
That's the problem that I even when I was younger, I said, there comes a point where, if you keep going to the same place just to capture evidence, when you have the ability to try to help them, like, I was more like just try to help them instead of going back for weeks and weeks trying to capture something. Then
after you've captured enough to show it to somebody you can get help from, that's the point where, you need to get help.
Right. Yeah.
Now, what, how long did you keep doing, like, the dark cases like this with Ed and Lorraine Warren? What was the point where you decided, okay, I've had enough of this?
For about 10 years, and then after that, like I said, we have 2 daughters, and after the first one was born, and I came back for another exorcism, and I used to watch I used to watch or investigations. I used to watch there's a replay it on the TV to review, see if we caught anything, and I said, this probably, like I said, this probably isn't a good idea right now to do it. I was worried about my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. When you talk about dark forces coming to your home.
But there's a case right now we're working on that in New Haven that oh my God, this guy we can't find a reason why why it happened to him, or like everybody thinks there has to be a reason, like that they did something, but
right.
It also, you find out it could be at random, it seems, or generational or whatever.
As I say, generational is another one that interests me.
But this guy got a good doozy, and there's a video of him. And the priest, I think the priest was there to, say some prayers with him and bless the house. And the man, he's crouched on the ground in front of his bed like a gargoyle. He looked just like a gargoyle, like the same way they crouch or whatever.
Yeah.
And his hands were like. And I've heard people scream before, and it just sounds like their voice screaming.
Right.
This guy was screaming like animal sounds.
Ooh.
It went right through your soul. You know what I mean? These
Yeah.
the screeches that he was doing. And then they were saying, the priest was basically saying, I cast you out, and this and that. And the guy jumped from in a crouch position backwards onto the bed, which was, a bed's like a couple of feet high, or whatever. He jumped backwards onto the bed and kind of almost crawled up the wall.
Oh my God.
Backwards. But I'm saying, I thought it was creepy watching it. We just went to this house a couple months ago to check up on him, but I tried to duplicate it at home, and it looks sick on video. But to try to duplicate it, it's like I thought the guy was a little guy and he was just limber and he could jump backwards. But when we met him, he was like 6'2", 240 pounds, whatever. He's a big guy, and if you try it, everybody try this at home. Do a
I'm trying to
crouched
picture
gargoyle
it.
position
I'm having trouble picturing it.
and jump backwards onto your bed without turning around.
Wow.
And then, so that's the one we're working on right
So
now.
you're not totally out of it. You're still kind of involved doing it somewhat.
No, actually, after the movie, we got more, we got more calls and more people were trying to, and it's hard because people are all over the country, and it's hard, we don't have the means to travel, we're just regular people working, and they're working on A Hostage to the Devil 2, which is going to be exclusively about working on cases presently and trying to revisit possible ones that we've done before, just to do see how they're doing.
Are you going to be involved with that? And
Yes.
oh wow, yeah, I didn't even know
So-
they're making a sequel to it. I've watched it a few times now because I said I've always been fascinated with Malachi Martin, and I read Hostage Devil many years ago, and it still scares the crap out of me thinking about it. So I'm saying I love doing the paranormal. I love going to people who are living in a haunted house. But if I walk, I was there and a guy did, start screaming and looking like a gargoyle and do a backflip onto his bed. I'm like, okay, well, we'll get back to you, and I would, but with other people that are experienced enough to help, because I know it'd be way over my head. It'd be way over my head.
No, you wouldn't not enjoy it, but you would appreciate it more when, like, I get a Christmas card from the girl I think she was only 6 or 7 years old, and we helped her, and she sent a Christmas card and a little kid writing like, "Thank you for helping me," whatever. And I still get Christmas cards from the girl from the Primetime show, and she has 4 kids now, and it's nice knowing that you might have helped somebody.
I remember that show too. I mean, it's all vaguely. I mean, I would love to find a copy of that because I haven't seen it since probably was on TV. But I remember them talking about her floating down the hallway and stuff in that. Like that's the stuff that the parents had witnessed, if I remember.
Oh, this girl here, when she was 13 years old, she had all these symptoms, and they were looking, for medical reasons, of course. There's a video. We have hours and hours of footage of her. She's in bed, and something you could see. It looks like something has her wrist, and is throwing it back and forth faster than you could do it, yourself, and twisting her arm at her. It's like it's holding her hand or wrist and turning her arm around like 2 or 3 times. She actually broke bones in her wrist and hand by these things, and there's videos of it looks like somebody's holding her by her arm, just throwing her back and forth around the room. And they showed these to the doctors, whatever, and they couldn't find any reason.
You can't just
why
break
this
your
is
own
happening.
damn wrist.
So nothing happened. Nothing happened to her. It went away after a while, and then when she turned 18, she moved into her own apartment with her boyfriend, and then stuff started happening in the house, and we didn't know. Like when we were trying to figure out what happened to her, we didn't know. Actually, the mother, I think, said, let us show you some video from when she was 13, and then it was like, oh, that could have been residue from back then. All of a sudden, it just raised its head again.
Yeah.
So that's how that started.
We do have another phone call on the line. I'm not sure who we got on the line. Who do we got on the line here?
It's Christy.
Hi, Christy. Yeah, I won't say your last name, but I think I know which Christy it is. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. How about you guys?
Doing
I
great.
think it's Christy, my new friend, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
You got a question for Jimmy tonight?
Yes, I do. I've been really enjoying the show this evening, and I wanted to ask Jimmy, what would you say was the best advice that you received in regards to investigating the paranormal, and who did you get that advice from?
Good question.
That's a good question. Best advice I got for investigating it. And I don't know if this is the best advice, but Ed always told us, and for some reason it's true. He said, "I will not work with people who don't have a sense of humor." And maybe because it's everything we do is so dark, you need
You need it. That's how I approach it. I always approach it with a sense of humor.
Nothing to make fun of it or light of it,
No.
but it's like he likes working with people that have a sense of humor, and I like that because I don't act like I act like myself no matter what. I'm not going to put on an act of, So it's like I appreciated that because he, I guess, enjoyed my humor at times when I could. But I don't know if it's good advice, but I just remember him saying that and it stuck out to me.
I definitely agree. I think that's fantastic advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you for calling in, Christy.
Bye.
So Ed would have liked me. I'm
yes,
a very funny guy.
Yes.
No, I think that's great advice because, I think humor could be the best weapon against the darkness.
Yeah, because it seems like it almost doesn't understand it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. But that's why I always say too. When we go into location, we have our little jokes and our sense of humor. We're not making light of a situation, but we have our positive energy when we go into a place that's been experiencing dark energy and it affects it. And we have to recognize that sometimes. Like, okay, stuff might not be happening because of our own energy.
Definitely agree.
Now, you say you have a book coming out. What other stuff is in the future for Jimmy?
Well, we got Hostage to the Devil Part 2 that's in the works. And if any listeners, if you guys want, if you just look up Hostage to the Devil on Facebook, there's a posting up there about if anyone or if you know anyone that is going through stuff that might need help, they're looking for that for new cases.
So anybody that's facing something demonic?
Yeah, and if they're looking for new cases, and like I said, it's like sometimes you don't have help in your area, and we don't have the means to go everywhere or send people places, or so if you know of somebody that needs help, possibly there's a email on their page that you can send it to, and then we'll get back to you.
I'm interested to see a Hostage Devil too, because there's so much more. Malachi Martin was interesting in itself, but there's so much more that goes on with people feeling they're being possessed in the market. I read a really good book back in the day called American Exorcism, which was a psychologist's approach to the exorcism phenomenon, and he's definitely a skeptic, but it was interesting because he got a lot of inside looks at different deliverance ministries and exorcism, talked a lot about the Warrens and stuff. And I've always been fascinated with, the different procedures, like the really experienced people involved in exorcism, what they go through, how they decide what case to take. Mm-hmm. And especially, and more reason why I would never do it too is because, the ones that would scare me the most are children that are being demonically harassed.
Jason, there's where we did the majority of the exorcisms was Our Lady of the Rosary Chapel, and there's a pew. I think it's the front pew on the left side. That is all the rest of the pews are bolted into the concrete. This particular one has carpet underneath it. It's not bolted in, and Bishop McKenna asked why that one's like that, or he might have mentioned. I don't know how we got talking about it, but there was an exorcism. I think it was a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy that was being exorcised, and he ripped the pew out of the concrete and the bolts out of the. Yeah, and a lot of people say I can never think of this word. What do you call the word when you get all adrenaline?
Adrenaline rush.
A lot of people said, well, yeah, you got to, the people could lift a car off their baby when it's, crushing the kid or whatever. But it's like we also work with a psychologist on our team, and she says the adrenaline that you're not going to have that adrenaline rush when you're sitting willingly in a chair having somebody pray to you or pray on you. That
you have
these
to have
people,
a total psychotic break.
right? These people break out of the hospital restraints, ripping pews out of the ground. I said the adrenaline really doesn't explain that.
Yeah, and to me, if he can do that to a chair, what can he do to a person?
Exactly.
And that's where you guys are putting yourself in harm's way. And how do you stop a 10-year-old child? It's not your 10-year-old child you're trying to stop; it's somebody else's. What are you going to do to stop that?
You know what? That brings up that's the first. That's the first time I took a break from cases.
Yeah,
we went to a house where we kind of disagreed on what was going on, and there was literally 3 or 4 little kids ranging from 5 to 10, and they're all sitting in chairs, and we were behind them, and the priest was he was doing a mini exorcism kind of, not a major big thing. And each one of us was standing behind each of the kids. And I remember somebody was saying to me, hold her down, hold her down. I said, I'm not putting my hands on that little kid. But then again, you said if she starts walking on the ceiling, talking Latin, attacking people, what do you do? It's a really weird situation.
Yeah. I mean, with an adult, it's one thing. They've consented. They're an adult.
Right. But I would not put my hands on that kid.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I would not want to be a part of that or face. I want to help the kid. It's not that I don't want to help the kid. I want to see that kid get exercise. And I'm an agnostic, but I believe I've had my own dark experience. I believe in the power of possession, and there are evil forces out there. I want to help a child. Being a parent, I want to help a child, but I could not put myself in that position. I couldn't do it.
No, it's hard.
Maybe I've seen too many movies or stuff, but I mean, I hear the stories from you, and I've read Hostage Devil, and I think there's enough real out there that I would be frightened of a little kid that's supposedly possessed. I'd be scared.
We did a whole show, I called it Creepy Kids, and it's like stories about, it's like my little 3-year-old sings songs in Polish to me, and my grandmother was Polish, and she never even met her, those kind of stories. Yeah, I remember when I said, "Mommy, there's a man with a snake neck hanging in our closet."
Oh, screw that! I do not do snakes. Oh yeah, being a parent, I've had my kids say some stuff that's creeped me out. He was humming the Civil War Soldier March song.
What?
And when he learns a song, like he hums it perfectly. And I'm like in the bathroom brushing my teeth, and I'm like, where is that music for that? It's a really kind of depressing song, And I come out and it's him humming it. I'm like, where'd you hear that from? He's like, oh, he says weird stuff. He goes, I learned that before I was born.
Holy mackerel.
And I try to get more out of him, and then he just goes off and whatever, And yeah, it's things kids say. It's darndest things, whatever. Like the paranormal version of that.
You know what's hard about that is when I complained about my mother not believing me about the thing up in my room, my kids did the same thing to me, and I didn't know what to say. Like, do you encourage them and say, yes, maybe you did see something? Or do you say, go back in your room, don't worry about it? Like, it's tough.
It is a tough call, especially,
My parents helped me look.
They helped you?
They believed me, and they helped me look.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
No,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's cool.
Say, my mom, I freaked her out because she kept on, we had lived in this trailer where a person had died, and she knew that person, but she had bought the trailer, and she would feel like somebody crawling into bed with her.
Ugh.
And then nobody be there. She'd think it's me, and then it stopped. And then one night I woke her up because I said, "There's a strange man that crawled in my bed," and it freaked her out. Like the next day, she had me go outside and play, and she said the guy's name. She's like, "If it's you that's here, it's not your home anymore. You need to leave." And then she said we never had anything again. But I remember after that, I saw this dark shadow guy standing in my doorway. And I put my heads under the covers, and I could hear it like throwing stuff around my room. And the next morning, Mom's like, "What'd you do? Play in the middle of the night? You destroyed your room. We just cleaned your room." And it was like he was pissed off. I told on him that he got in my bed. I swear that weird stuff. Kids say the darndest thing. But yeah, I creeped her out, and then I had it just experimenting with ITC stuff. I don't do it often in my home, but I was trying to set up some new equipment, and I was doing like a live test, and we were live on probably YouTube or something, and my son, I come upstairs after we're done, he goes, he's hiding under the table, and he's like, there was a man here with glasses and an old man, and there was a young girl in a white dress, and I'm like, okay, no more experimenting. Except on ITC night, So yeah, kids can creep you out.
Yeah, I have a kid story. I don't think we have time for it.
Yeah, we got 3 minutes left. I'd love to have you back on again, Jimmy.
Sure.
I love talking to you. You have so much experience, and sorry if I asked a lot about the Warrens, and you're probably the first guest I've had on that worked with them that closely. So I can't help but ask about them because they were so such a big part of bringing the paranormal where it is today.
Definitely.
Now, also want to give a shout out to you. Do a radio show, The Haunted Chronicle.
Yep, Haunted Chronicles, 8 p.m. Eastern on paramaniaradio.com. And we have guests, or we just talk about a subject, and it's fun.
Yeah, I'd love to come on your show sometime. We got to figure it out. My scheduling sucks sometimes, but I'd love to come on.
Definitely.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. Like I said, I'd love to have you back on again. Talk more about your experiences in the paranormal. Or maybe when the book comes out, when you come out with a new book, we'd have you on to talk about that, talk some more about those stories. Because, man, I love stories about the phone calls from the dead, the texts from the dead. It's just so interesting that they can manipulate an electronic device to that degree.
We had no idea we get so much feedback from those. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those stories.
More of the stories. And you wonder if more technology is coming out, what are they going to be influencing? I swear I've had shows here, man, where my phone starts just typing stuff. And it's not,
wow.
Yeah, I've had it where it's like just typing gibberish or numbers, but it's like I'm not touching my phone and it's typing itself. We've done those
in our lifetime,
shows.
They'll probably come up with some device that you ask a question and it answers immediately.
Yeah, and how will that change the world? Will you say something, Jamie?
I was going to say, I think we could have a whole other hour just on talking about that stuff, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go another hour.
I would if I didn't have to be up really early. We were talking about before the show, like how I've been thinking about going 3 hours. This would definitely be one of those shows where I wish I could go 3 hours, but I can't tonight. I got to be up early.
Another night.
Another night. We'll just get you back on again, Jimmy. Thank you so much for being on. I haven't even looked to see who my next week's guest is. I'm such a bad host. I do that every time, every night. I go, oh yeah, next week, and I got to look at my notes. Next week is going to be John and Karina Kazuka. I totally butchered her name. They were supposed to be on when I got the flu really bad. So we rescheduled them, so they'll be back on. Thank you, Jimmy. It was wonderful having you on.
Thanks for having me.
We got to get you back on again. Guys, next Sunday, like I said, John and Karina Kazuka. I'm sorry if I butchered your names. Paranormal Investigators. I got a show coming out on Amazon. We're going to talk about that. True North Paranormal. So we'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. See you then. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you to everybody who shared the show out tonight. Don't forget to go Late Night in the Midlands, radionetwork.com. Subscribe, donate if you can. Anything you can do to help the network keep going is greatly appreciated. And check us out on Midwest Paranormal Presents, Paranormal Soup Facebook page. And we also archive our shows on YouTube. Just type in either my name, Jason Bland, or type in Paranormal Soup, and you'll find us there. All right, guys, thanks for watching. See you next week.